Welcome to Math for All's Math Nugget. Today we are going to be talking about quadratics in their standard form and what that tells us. Standard form of a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Before we go through all of the things that the standard form can tell us, let's go through what these mean. First up is the vertex. Looking at this parabola, a vertex to me reminds me of what is a corner. A parabola doesn't really have a corner, but it's this point right here where our parabola turns to be either going down to up or up to down. The axis of symmetry is related to that vertex, but it is always a vertical line that my parabola can fold over upon itself. It's the line of symmetry of a parabola. Next is the y-intercept. Remember that a y-intercept is where the parabola would cross the y-axis. For us, it'd be this point right here. X-intercepts are also called roots or the solutions. They like to use all these different vocabulary words. And that is where the parabola would cross the x-axis for here and here. Now let's go through what the standard form of a quadratic actually can tell us. First up, the vertex. The vertex is not intuitively obvious from the standard form of an equation. We have to remember a formula, and this is very, very important. It is negative b over 2a. We go ahead and put the negative b value over 2a, and that gives us the x value of the vertex. Don't worry, we'll practice that. Then to find the y, the easiest thing to do is to put that x that we just found back into the equation to figure out where it is. Sometimes you'll see them put it like this. They'll say f of negative b over 2a, but honestly, that's kind of confusing. It just means put that number in and get your y value. Remember that the axis of symmetry is related to your vertex, and so we would always write down x equals, and then whatever value we get for here goes right there to tell us where our axis of symmetry is. X equals negative b over 2a. The y-intercept is the one value that we can get right off of our standard form of the equation. It is this c. And y-intercept would always start with a 0, and then the y value is going to be this c right here. Next up are x-intercepts. In the standard form, our x-intercepts are not obvious. We have a couple choices here. We can go ahead and factor our equation to find them. Or if that doesn't work, or if we don't want to do it that way, we could use the quadratic formula. Another interesting piece of information is that we can tell if this parabola opens up for happy face or down for sad face. I kind of think of my parabolas as smiley faces or sad faces. If your A value is positive, then you know that it opens up as a happy face. If your A value is negative, then you know that it opens down for a sad face. That's another piece of information you can get from the standard form of an equation. Let's try an example. We have y equals negative x squared plus 4x plus 2. We are charged with finding the vertex. Now, we can see the vertex right on this graph over here, but we're going to do it the hard way, pretending like they didn't give us a picture. Remember that the vertex is always at negative b over 2a. We'll go ahead and figure that out first. Remember that our a for this one equals negative 1, our b equals 4, and our c will equal 2. So negative b will be a negative sign and then the 4 on top, 2 on the bottom times our a, which is negative 1. Don't forget those negative signs. They're super important. We'll go ahead and simplify this. We have negative 4 over negative 2, which equals a positive 2. That tells us the x value of our vertex. We'll go ahead and put that here. Now, to find out where it is on the y-axis, how far up or down, we have to put that 2 back into our original equation whenever we see an x. So let's go ahead and do that. Negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 plus 2. This first term is very important. We are not squaring that negative sign. We're squaring the 2 and then we're plopping the negative sign in the front. We have a negative sign and then 2 squared is 4 plus 4 times 2, which is 8, plus 2. Go ahead and add across and I can see that we are going to be at 6. So our vertex officially is at 2, 6, which we can confirm right there. Great job. Do you remember the axis of symmetry? We always just write down x equals, and then we take the x value of the vertex, 2. X equals 2, our axis of symmetry is at x equals 2. Great, we got some more points there. Y-intercept. Remember, that's our c value. The c value tells us how far up and down along the y-axis our parabola is. So for this one, we would be at 0, 2, and we can see it right there. Our x-intercepts for this one are going to be a little bit more challenging. I can take a look at this graph right here and notice that my x-intercepts are not hitting at whole numbers, so I know that I'm not going to be able to factor this one. We are going to have to use a quadratic formula, and I think it's going to be worthwhile to actually go through that. So let's remember our quadratic formula of negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Please don't forget this thing, it's super important. We'll go ahead and plop in the numbers where they go. We have a negative sign with our b, which is 4, plus or minus 4 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times 2 over 2 times a, which is negative 1. Okay, this looks like a disaster, but remember, we go ahead and take what's under the square root first. I'm going to go ahead and start going up here since I ran out of room. I'll start right here. Negative 4 plus or minus. Let's take care of this square root. I have 16, let's see, we can just put it here. 16 minus minus, that's going to give me a plus. 4 times 1 times 2, which is 8. 16 plus 8 is 24. That's what goes under my square root. On the bottom, I have a negative 2. So we could simplify this out, or we could stick it into a calculator, which is what I did, and we're going to get 2 answers. The first one is going to be negative 0.45, and you can see that follows along with that, and a positive 4.5 about, and that's this right here. Those would be your x-intercepts. That looks amazing at all the things that we learned about. We can also see that this negative sign in front, when my a is negative, that it would be a sad face, or it's an opening down parabola, which is exactly what we figured out. So great job with that. Awesome sticking with me on learning what the quadratic standard form can tell us about the graph of your parabola. I hope you stick with us to learn more about math.